Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with a love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? 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 We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi. Hello, hi, hello. Welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. If you are listening to this on the day it dropped, then happy Black Friday in the United States, which is, of course, the day after Thanksgiving. And I spent my Thanksgiving with my family at my place in Harrisburg. We played some Zoo King, we ate some food, and we had a great time. Actually, it was the first time I was hosting at my new place, and gotta admit, it felt really, really good to do that. I really enjoyed it. But actually, that all happened on Wednesday, which was our family Thanksgiving day this week, because, you know, actual days mean nothing. The holiday is what you make it. And actually, for us, on Thursday this year, we did something a little different. On Thursday, I headed to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania for what arguably might be the last time ever. And that's weird. I was born in Wilkes-Barre and my whole family comes from there. My parents left when I was 1 year old, but my grandparents lived their entire lives there, so I never stopped visiting until my grandfather passed back in 2022. And then since that time, the house has just stayed there. And you know, the house where they lived, it stayed basically the same. And since I was living in Philly until recently, we used it for family gatherings a lot. It kind of made sense geographically for me and my parents and Zoe and Miles. And yeah. But now with me having a place in Harrisburg, it doesn't really make sense anymore. And my folks went ahead and sold the house. And so on Thanksgiving Day, we spent the day going through stuff at the house and getting ready for the sale of the home, and also the house sale, which is a term used where people come in and basically, like professionals come in and sell off all the stuff in the house. And yeah, so I snagged some final things from the house, and it was a lot. You know, and I realize that I'm possibly being a bit dramatic when I say that I might never go to the town again, but it is legitimately possible. And just the fact that it is possible, and that I know I won't be in that house again, is a lot to think about. My folks have had multiple homes in my life, as have I. But that house was always there, along with my actual parents. It's the most constant thing in my life. And I guess I'm sharing all of this because, well, that's what I do at the start of Zoo News each week. But also because I think it was fitting that my final visit to that house fell on Thanksgiving. I'm so thankful that I had such an incredible relationship with my nanny and my poppy. And I'm thankful that I come from a family where my mother's favorite human in the entire world was her father. A lot of how I treat people comes from how I was treated in that house. And I'm thankful for that as well. And as I walked through the house today, I did a final walkthrough. And memories flooded back to me in a way that I've never experienced before. Honestly, when I've left other houses, whatever, nothing like that ever happened before. And even when like my grandparents passed, I have great memories of them, but there was never a like triggering of a flood of memories like I experienced as I walked through that house for the last time. And they were all good memories. And I'm thankful for that. So I guess in a weird sort of way, it was, it was appropriate to say goodbye to a place that I'm incredibly thankful for having in my life, for my entire life, up until right now, on Thanksgiving. So that's what's been going on in my life. But moving away from the philosophical and into the, real world, don't forget that you can obtain your real world copy of the official 2024 Rossifari ornament. It's a wooden ornament featuring amazing drawings of a red panda, binturong, tree kangaroo, and a sea turtle, all done up in holiday outfits. I love them so much, and you can check them out by going to cappytrails.com or by checking out my social media pages where I keep linking to them. They are limited edition, and so your window to get them is closing, so don't forget to secure your Rossifari ornament soon. And of course, if you missed Tuesday's episode for any reason, don't forget about all of the incredible creators that are there. Go back and listen, and I'll add the discount codes to the show notes again, because there are some really great discounts available for Rossifari listeners for some really cool gifts. So yeah, philosophical musings and commercialism. When you come to Rossifari, you really do get it all. But most importantly, you get...
We've been taking care of pandas and the seals, taking care of pandas, feeding meals. We've been taking care of pandas with Zoo News, taking care of pandas and picking up their poos, pooping out.
All right, so we recently talked about the controversy surrounding the AZA Animal Wellbeing Summit, and now, barely 2 weeks later, some additional controversy has popped up for the organization surrounding a document they released called the AZA 2033 Trends Report. And no, I didn't misspeak, and yes, I do know what year it is. The report looks at the anticipated transformative shifts that will guide the zoological industry over the next decade. So the idea is it looks at trends from now to 33. And I'm not going to lie, I have not dug into the whole thing as much as I'd like to. The report is 146 pages long, and while I do plan on diving into it further at some point, which may or may not lead to additional commentary and content on the podcast, there are two things mentioned in the report that have started creating waves in the zoological field already that I thought I would address as our headline story today. The first of these is a section titled, How Should Zoos and Aquariums Address Technology Trends? With the first subheading be, Embrace AI. Now, y'all know that I have some feelings about AI when it comes to stealing from artists and such, and I do think that if zoos and aquariums were to start creating signage using AI or using AI images, it would be a big problem. But that is not what the report is talking about, and I'm not going to go off on another one of those rants for y'all. Instead, the report suggests that zoos should embrace the use of AI technologies to figure out things like pricing dynamics, market fluctuations, attendance trends, both for the facility overall and for individual habitats, etc. Allowing AI to analyze and help manage resource allocation, maintenance schedules, procurement of animal food and veterinary supplies, all that stuff will, assuming the AI is good enough, eliminate human error in these areas and also help facilities plan and manage their resources better. The report also addresses the fact that over this time period, AI will probably advance to the point that it will be used online to spread misinformation by the anti-zoo crowd, and talks about how it is essential to create a deepfake defensive strategy as part of this whole conversation, which I thought was actually pretty cool. But the problem is that nowhere in the pages and pages of information pertaining to AI do I see one thing addressed: the climate impact of AI. We just recently discussed on here how using ChatGPT in its current iteration burns through basically 1 bottle's worth of water every single time you use a prompt, and that as the technology improves, it's only going to keep burning through more water unless the hardware develops ways to run cooler, which could happen, but something we haven't seen evidence of happening yet. So, in a report that addresses climate change and ecological factors in many other sections, the section about embracing AI is wildly silent on the topic. Between that and the general icky feeling many people in the industry have about AI, especially those that are artists as a side hustle or a hobby, this part of the report has gone over a bit like a lead balloon with a lot of people, though I actually think there's a lot of positive stuff to be said about the way the AZA does discuss embracing AI technology. And I have to point out here that I am by no means a knowledgeable person when it comes to AI. I know what I have studied and read, and I know I am knowledgeable about the climate impact, but I also do wonder how fast these developments will happen and if it will be easier to not use the large server farms and all that stuff. I know that Apple is claiming that their Apple AI is done mostly on the device and not in the cloud, meaning not at these big server farms. So at that point, I guess you don't have to worry about it. So we'll see what's going on. But what I've read so far, I found it surprised that this was both encouraged and that part of the topic was not addressed. But that's not even the biggest controversy that has come from this report so far. The second section in question is a part of the report that deals with design trends. And the controversial bit reads, quote, "Species under our care will change, and our habitats will be designed with a multi-generational view of evolving species composition. The number and profile of species and individuals of each species will change, with fewer elephants, cetaceans, great apes, and other large animals." End quote. Now, this idea comes from a variety of places, but part of it is polling the AZA did itself that shows that younger generations seek to see fewer large animals at zoos and aquariums. Couple that with the fact that many of these specific animals are facing declining populations in human care, and the commitment to not take animals out of the wild to replenish stock unless they are injured and deemed non-releasable, and there is both internal and external pressure to move away from keeping these animals in human care. And I found this analysis particularly fascinating as the AZA has been doggedly committed to keeping elephants in zoos in recent years. At the AZA conference 2 years ago, there was a huge commitment to keeping the species that was made in the main session of the first day of the conference. It was almost defiant in the strength of the statement made. And since then, the AZA has formed the Elephant Sustainability Task Force, with sustainability in this case talking about the population of the species in AZA zoos, and created the AZA Elephant Strategy, a community-wide effort to confront the issue of a declining zoo-based population head-on. So this statement in the report about moving away from these species created controversy amongst keepers in general, and especially the keepers of those species who feel not only threatened in their job security, but also suddenly find themselves wondering if the AZA has their backs. I actually spoke to a few different keepers about the topic, and they were not happy, though one did point out to me that the trends report is just that, a report of the trends the AZA sees, not a commitment to those trends or even guidelines for AZA zoos and aquariums to follow. My take on the topic, and this is just my own informed speculation based on things I've seen and heard, is that the AZA is committed to large megafauna, but to approaching them in a new way. And I think it's actually a way we are already seeing happen, but we're starting to see it become more codified. Let's look at elephants, since we've talked about them a lot. In the last few years, zoos such as the Buffalo Zoo, Honolulu Zoo, and Auckland Zoo have all ended their elephant programs. The areas the animals lived in were small, and they had to house small populations without a ton of room because of this. And as we've learned more about the species, we've come to understand how problematic that is, and that these zoos either didn't have the space or finances to create larger areas for big herds of elephants, so they moved on from their programs. And I know of at least 2 other zoos that have privately told me they are ending their elephant programs after their current generation of animals passes away. But that experts have told these facilities that moving their elephants would not be in the best interest of the animals, so they are keeping them until they pass, and then those programs will end as well. At the same time, larger zoos have been building brand new, huge elephant habitats or expanding their current ones. Cincinnati just opened Elephant Trek. The Fort Worth Zoo built an elephant paradise a few years ago. Columbus just added a huge new area to their elephant habitat, greatly expanding the area these elephants have to roam in. And so that's how I interpret this trend and kind of make it jive with the commitment the AZA has made to elephants recently. I don't see this trend report as the death knell for elephants, cetaceans, or great apes in human care. I simply think you'll see more places move away from those animals, while other facilities embrace those species as their main draw and expand their habitats, bringing in more animals, creating multi-generational herds, and hopefully increasing breeding success in the process. Now, that's obviously some speculation on my part, but it is the only way that I can make the trends report and the recent commitment to elephants make sense. So I think I'm right. But then don't I always? And as far as the controversy surrounding these topics in the field, look, I get it. It's scary to see potential changes, and having 146 pages of them shoved down your throat in one document is a lot. Change, for many people, is scary. But the truth is, change will occur, always, in any industry. And especially in one where animal welfare is the main concern, and our understanding of animals and their needs will continue to develop with technological advances and more studying. I actually applaud the AZA for releasing a document that is so detailed and focused entirely on the future of the industry. One of the hardest parts of change is the unknown and the feeling of being blindsided, and this report should help alleviate those concerns. Even if they're also dredging up some of them right now, at least it's just in a trends report, as opposed to suddenly getting new accreditation, standards that say, hey, no elephants or whatever. Again, the AZA is not moving in that way. I'm just using that as an example. But whether you agree or disagree with the trends and suggestions in the report is one thing. But I have to say that I actually wish more industries would do this kind of thing. I can't tell you how many times I and my theater peeps have sat around trying to figure out what the heck our jobs were going to look like in the next 5 or 10 years. It'd be pretty cool if some experts would tell us, so I do applaud the AZA for doing this. And that brings us to our births for the week. Ren is here, and I'm so excited I could scream! Actually, I think I just did scream. But don't worry, I use compression, so it probably didn't blow your ears out. Sorry about that. In case you're wondering what I'm talking about, Woodland Park Zoo has announced the birth of Ren, a Matchie's tree kangaroo, born to mother K-Wing and father Morobi. Morobi, by the way, is the tree kangaroo that is featured in my viral video where he looks like he's flipping you off while eating a carrot. Love that guy. I am so excited about this new Joey joining the family. 2 years ago, when Paya was born at Woodland Park Zoo, I was able to visit periodically as she grew, and I'm hoping to do the same for Ren. Paya, by the way, means fire in Tok Pigeon, which is one of the languages spoken in Papua New Guinea, where these animals can be found. The new little one, as I mentioned, is named Ren, which means rain. So we have fire and rain currently chilling at Woodland Park Zoo. And keep in mind, tree kangaroos are marsupials, meaning that even though Ren is just starting to look out at the world now, the birth actually took place months ago. I've been sitting on this info since July, and that is a long time to wait for not only sharing information, but for starting to see the little one. I am so happy. And that's not all. You may remember, if you are a fan of the pod for a while now, that we have a very strong connection with an Australian keeper who used to work with a tree kangaroo named Kofi. And honestly, that person did more to make me fall in love with tree kangaroos than anyone. And of course, her name is Wren, spelled exactly the same, R-E-N. So that's just a lovely little coincidence. Has nothing to do with why they named Wren. But I'm so excited that Wren is Wren because Wren is Wren, and Wren is why I love Wren. That was confusing, but yay, Wren is here. Woo! And actually, that's not all that has me losing my mind this week, although I'm probably done screaming for now. Hammerton Zoo Park has announced the birth of 3 bintlets this summer that are now old enough to start exploring their habitat. Binturongs are all adorable, of course, but bintlets are some of the cutest baby animals out there. Add to it the fact that you have a playful trio running around together right now, and if you happen to be anywhere near Hammerton Zoo Park, you simply need to get there and see these little ones. The St. Louis Zoo has welcomed a baby male Asian elephant. Born to 17-year-old mother Jade, the boy is named Jet in the tradition of naming the elephants at the zoo with gemstone names. This is the first time an Asian elephant has been born at the St. Louis Zoo using artificial insemination. This was important as it allowed Jade to contribute to the genetic health of the Asian elephant population without leaving the family group she is very bonded with. It honestly wouldn't shock me to see more of this technique used moving forward, as the social dynamics of elephant herds make transporting female elephants incredibly challenging, not to mention, the actual challenge of actually transporting an elephant. And yes, only on the Rossifari podcast do tree kangaroo and binturong birds get top billing over a freaking amazing elephant calf. The Auckland Zoo has announced the hatching of a kiwi chick, or keelet. This is the first time a kiwi has successfully been hatched at the zoo. Tuku and Rebecca, the parents, actually laid a second egg as well, but the zoo decided to move it into an incubator to give it the best chance for survival. So everyone is still waiting on that egg with bated breath, but the already hatched chick is very exciting. And then last but not least in births this week, the Colchester Zoo has welcomed a squirrel monkey to mother Milu. Although they are not an endangered species, squirrel monkeys are a huge part of the exotic pet trade, and both the zoo and Waza are using this birth as a way to educate people about the problems these animals are facing. Congrats to the zoo. And of course, that brings us to our deaths for the week. An iconic bear has passed away. Ho-Ho, a beloved sun bear that called the Topeka Zoo home, has passed away at the age of 35. Ho-Ho was the oldest living sun bear in North America. As he aged, Ho-Ho had some dental problems, which led to some teeth being removed, and because of that, his tongue was almost always hanging out of his mouth, which made his look extra endearing. And along with being loved by staff and guests, Ho-Ho also became a social media sensation, impacting people all around the globe and teaching them about his amazing species. He was truly an ambassador for sun bears worldwide. In fact, people actually traveled from all around the globe for a chance to see his adorable face. In general, male sun bears live into their early to mid-20s, so 35 is an incredible age for a sun bear to reach. And yet, somehow, to his fans and his caretakers, it still doesn't seem like enough time. True legend status for Ho-Ho. Loki, the oldest Pacific white-sided dolphin at Shedd Aquarium, has passed away. She was estimated to be 41 years old at the time of her passing, an incredible age, especially given that she had many health challenges. Although she was an older lady, she had only been at Shedd for a little over a year after they were called upon to relocate and provide refuge to her just last year. And while the time the team spent with her wasn't super long, the relationships built, especially in helping her adapt to a new pod, were strong, so she will be sorely missed. The Palm Beach Zoo has said goodbye to Wilbur, their Hoffman's two-toed sloth, after 22 years at the zoo. Wilbur was an incredible ambassador animal, meeting thousands of people over her lifetime and inspiring a deeper love of animals just by being her awesome self. When not doing meet and greets, Wilbur would often hang out in her exhibit, but also would sometimes go on walks in the arms of a zoologist, strolling the pathways of the zoo and reaching even more people. Her loss will be felt for a long time at the zoo. And last but not least, Turtleback Zoo has said goodbye to Sakari, a 20-year-old lioness. Sakari was one of the initial lions moved into the lion and hyena habitat when it opened back in 2017, and was known for being smart, sassy, and fearless. Sadly, an irreversible kidney disease became too much for Sakari to overcome, and when medical management became impossible, the decision was made to humanely euthanize her. It was the correct decision, but is still hard for the team at the zoo, sending them all the love. And that brings us to the rest of our zoo news section. The Creation Kingdom Zoo in Gate City, Virginia, suffered a terrible fire recently. As of the time of this recording, it is unknown how many animals perished in the fire, though it is known that some did. As of now, no human loss of life has been reported, but police are investigating the fire as it seems suspicious. Sending all the good vibes to everyone at the zoo. I really hope the animals and staff are able to recover from this tragedy. On a happier note, the team at Zoos Victoria has a lot to celebrate this week, as the Victoria Tourism Awards were held recently, and they took home a lot of hardware. Healesville Sanctuary won its third consecutive gold medal for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Experience category. This victory led to the sanctuary being inducted into the Hall of Fame. The Melbourne Zoo won gold in the Major Tourist Attraction Award and also took home the silver medal in the Mayor's Award category. Congrats to all involved. Woodland Park Zoo has provided an update on Batu's pregnancy. Now, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, as Batu, the orangutan, was well past her expected due date, but tests showed the pregnancy was still happening and the baby looked good. Well, unfortunately, since then, something happened, and Batu has lost her baby. There is no word on what happened at this time, but the loss is especially hard as the baby was very close to full term and also looked great until the final ultrasound when they found it was gone. Sending all the love to the team at Woodland Park Zoo. Avian influenza continues to be a thing, and as we mentioned last week, it has now made its way to Hawaii. That led the Honolulu Zoo to not only put out a post on social media pointing out that the disease is on the islands, but also reminding people that feeding native wildlife is a way to help the disease spread. Apparently, that's a problem in Hawaii, even more than in many other places, so it's important for people to not give in to that temptation as the bird flu is currently there. And while on the topic of the bird flu, a child in California has been confirmed to have been infected by the disease, the first reported case of a child contracting it in the U.S. Seems like the kiddo is okay and only ever had mild symptoms, but it's still kind of crazy to watch how this disease is not only continuing to travel around the country and the world, but also keeps reaching different populations and different, often unexpected species, and shows up even in animal byproducts from time to time. For instance, since we're talking bird flu, samples of raw milk in California have tested positive for the disease for the first time as well. So yeah, maybe avoid the raw milk for the foreseeable future, as pasteurization will take care of issues like H5N1 before you drink your milk. Raw milk can give you bird flu, so of course the person tapped to run the health department in the next U.S. presidential administration encourages the drinking of raw milk. What a time to be alive. But we're going to end with a happier one. Last but not least, in zoo news, we go back to elephants once again. An elephant at the Berlin Zoo has surprised zookeepers and researchers by figuring out how to turn a hose into a shower. Mary the elephant systematically showers her body, coordinating the use of her trunk to aim the hose with the motion of her body parts that she wants to wash. Once researchers realized Mary was doing this, they experimented with her slightly, giving her different hoses that were less flexible or weighed significantly more than her usual hose. When those changes were made, Mary stopped using the hose and reverted to using her trunk to bathe, seemingly because at that point it was just easier to use the trunk than to use the more challenging hoses. But when lighter, easier to use hoses were given to her again, Mary went right back to them. But that's not the only crazy part about this story. Another elephant, Anchali, started to show aggressive body language when Mary would use her hose to bathe. And Charlie eventually started lifting the hose and kinking it with her trunk, disrupting the flow of water to Mary. It's impossible to say exactly why Anchali did these behaviors, but given her body language at the time, it seems likely that she was somehow annoyed at Mary using the hose this way and was actually trying to sabotage the behavior. Amazing stuff, and yet another indication of how complex the social lives of elephants truly are.
Conservation! Conservation! News time! Oh yeah!
We start this section with some sad news. The slender-billed curlew has been declared extinct after having not been sighted since 1995. This bird species, one of the migratory shorebirds that had a range covering mainland Europe, North Africa, and West Asia, has had the occasional unverified sighting, but an intense study attempting to find any remaining trace of the population has been done and came up empty, so the species is now officially considered extinct. This study also serves as a dire warning of the need to fix the loss of inland grassland and wetland nesting areas, as well as coastal wetland non-breeding areas, as this species is one of many that use the same areas, so these other birds who also use them could end up being lost to the same issues. A huge and happy story from the U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife. For the first time ever, a black-footed ferret has been born by a cloned black-footed ferret. Antonia, a female who is a clone, gave birth to 2 healthy young after mating with Urchin, a 3-year-old male. This is not only the first time a cloned black-footed ferret has successfully bred, but it's actually the first time any cloned endangered species in the U.S. has successfully reproduced. This is an incredible step forward, not just for the species, but for conservation as a whole, especially in populations with limited genetics. A recent study from the Duke University Marine Lab has confirmed something that has been long expected. Deep diving whales that use echolocation for their foraging actually end up mistaking plastic debris for prey because of a phenomenon known as acoustic mimicry. Basically, the echoes produced by plastic bags, bottles, and other items closely resemble the acoustic signatures of prey like squid. Given that this foraging takes place in complete darkness, there is no way for the whales to visually tell the difference, so they end up ingesting the plastics instead of food. It's crazy to me that not only does plastic look like prey items to animals like sea turtles, but it even sounds like prey items to echolocators. In fact, the study showed that 88.9% of the plastics tested fell into this category and did the acoustic mimicry thing. So yeah, we can officially add sperm and beaked whales and other deep diving whales to the list of animals suffering due to all the plastic pollution in the ocean, even though they can't see it. So for the next story, we have good news and bad news. We'll start with the bad news. That is that more than 30 whales were stranded in New Zealand recently, an entire pod of pilot whales. The good news is that only 3 adults and 1 calf died. The rest were refloated by lifting them onto sheets, an effort that was undertaken by the local Maori group, who were joined by other rescue groups and members of the public as the rescue went on. These efforts were nothing short of incredible, and it's amazing to hear about so many people coming together to save some whales. The fact that it was spearheaded by the indigenous people of the region is not surprising at all, but it's all just so amazing to hear. I absolutely love stories of people coming together to help animals. I debated whether this next one should go in conservation news or other news, but there are some potential conservation angles to it, so it's going here. Wolves in Ethiopia have been documented feeding on nectar. This is not only the first time these animals have been seen doing this, but the first time any carnivore has been documented feeding on nectar. While it's hard to say whether this is a fluke or not, and thus hard to say what it means, we can at the very least say that it could easily mean that these wolves are serving as pollinators in their environment, which is something that wolves aren't often credited as. But then it also goes into additional questions of whether animals are developing different approaches to finding their diet. Is this an evolutionary change based on declining food supplies and climate-related issues? Is this something that has been ongoing for ages and we are just now discovering it? Have some wild puppies discovered that they like sweet treats and that's all this is? It's impossible to say, but it is fascinating to think about all of the wild things it could mean. So hopefully more research leads to a better understanding of what is going on. And then last but not least in conservation news, we often talk about the illegal pet trade and how problematic it is on this podcast. And something I often wonder is, how are those animals transported? And yeah, we've done stories on confiscations over the years that have shed some light on the topic. And you know, honestly, some people have come up with insidious but ingenious ways of transporting animals and tricking airport security. And this story is not an example of that. A South Korean citizen was recently arrested trying to smuggle some animals out of Peru. How many, you ask? 320 tarantulas, 110 centipedes, and 9 bullet ants. That's a lot of animals. And the thing is, these animals were all strapped to his body. Seriously, 439 animals strapped to his body, trying to get through an airport and onto a plane. It's a ridiculous mental image, but it also does serve as a stark reminder of how terrible this trade can be, and honestly, how desperate people in this industry can become. I've gotten over my arachnophobia, but I am not strapping 320 tarantulas onto my body. I'm just saying.
It's time for other news. It's time for other news. Hey, now, right now, now it's time. It's time for other news. Hey, it's a segue to the part called other news.
Oh, the internet. A tiger at a safari in Thailand has been going viral recently, in particular because it has really cute, close-set eyes that lead to some seriously adorable expressions, and it also has some unique coloration. And yes, the cat is very cute because of those traits. Unfortunately, experts believe the cat looks that way because of inbreeding. From what I have seen shared by experts, there is a very high likelihood that this cat is incredibly inbred and comes from an obviously bad breeding situation. Obviously, hence the inbreeding. So this is a great reminder to make sure that if you see something that seems a little off, even adorably so, it might be worth doing some research before you share it. And I want to be clear, I'm not castigating anyone who has liked or shared posts of this adorable tiger. Not at all. But remember, people and organizations do profit from those likes and shares, especially when things go super viral. So it is always worth doing at least a little research when you can, in the hopes of maybe not sharing those things. But again, not knocking anyone who has, and I'm sure I've done it in my time as well. And last but not least in other news, the Snow Leopard Trust has recently released some interesting footage of a snow leopard doing a strange behavior. The cat was found digging for and drinking water in Mongolia's Tost Mountains. This area is part of the Gobi Desert and receives very little rain, but does host a stable population of snow leopards. So is this digging for water thing a new trend? Is this a learned behavior from another species? Is this something these snow leopards always do, but new technology is just making us aware of the behavior now? We don't know. But it is a fascinating reminder that we really do know very little about many of the wild lives of the animals, even the ones that we see pretty regularly in zoos and aquariums.
Oh, animal holidays. Animal holidays. Hey!
All right, so we're starting this episode in November, which is Manatee Awareness Month, and the 29th is International Jaguar Day. Then we hit December, which doesn't have any animals that claim it as a month. Crazy. December 1st starts Walrus Awareness Week. December 2nd is National Mutt Day. The 3rd is World Coati Day and Baboon Day. The 4th is International Cheetah Day and World Wildlife Conservation Day. And the 5th is World Soil Day. And those are your animal and dirt holidays for the week. All right, so there you have it, folks. Hope you all enjoyed this episode of Rossifari Zoo News. Make sure that you hit subscribe so you don't miss any of these or any of the Tuesday interview episodes. And make sure you're following along on the socials at Rossifari, on TikTok at Rossifari Pod, all the good things. Yeah. Also, don't forget that you can go to patreon.com/Rossifari to support the pod, and that soon our Red Panda and Binturong level patrons will be getting their very own custom monthly stickers from Cappy Trails. Amazing stuff. Speaking of those Red Panda level patrons, I'd like to say thank you to mine, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, and Kevin Williams. And then I'd like to say thank you to everyone who contributed to this week's episode, including Anya Keene, Colleen Lenahan, Kim Cooley-Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbook, Crystal Chapman, Matt Patford, Jacob Zinn, Jay Meredith, Anna McEachran, Strix, Dr. Natalie Taco, Sherry Weiss, Ali Malensky, Kay Malensky,
The Malenskys.
Dr. Laura Shank, and Yoshioka, and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Thank you all so much for contributing, and we'll see you back here on Tuesday for another interview episode. But hey, remember, friends, the words Newsy Credits Backwards are Steiderk Yuswen. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo. Eliminate human error. I just made an error saying error.